Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I will share my screen. Okay. So last session we discussed about we started exception handling. In this session we discussed about the what is exception and why to handle exception, types of exceptions, and what is the difference between the exception and exception vs error. In the interview perspective, exception handling is the very important topic. Wherever you go, wherever you attend, like the interview might be at the fresher level, the interview might be at the experience level. Interview, I would say, interview might be fresher or might be experience. In the interview perspective, in the interview panel, they compulsory ask the questions about the exceptions. In the exception handling, we will have the few questions they will ask. Like the first question they will ask, what is the exception? And last session we discussed these concepts. What is exception, why to handle exception, and types of exceptions, and what is the difference between exception and error, and exception hierarchy, and what is the difference between the checked exception and unchecked exceptions, and exception propagation, and how to handle these exceptions. We can handle these two exceptions. We will use five keywords. Those are the try keyword, catch keyword, finally throw and throws. With the help of these five keywords, we can able to handle these exceptions, checked exceptions and unchecked exceptions, checked exceptions and unchecked exceptions. After that, we'll have the try with resources. We'll have the after 1.7 versions. We'll have some features. We'll have the some features. After that, this is the user defined exceptions. So before that, these all are the predefined exceptions. Like last session we discussed about the some predefined exceptions, like arithmetic exceptions, array index out of boundary exceptions, null pointer exceptions, and like class not found exceptions, and file reader exceptions. These exceptions are comes under the predefined exceptions. Predefined exceptions basically. So predefined exceptions. So in the last session we discussed these concepts, and today session will discuss user defined exceptions. User defined exceptions. So before going to start exception handling, we should aware of what does it mean by graceful termination and what does it mean by abnormal termination. We should aware of these two words, then only you can able to understand the exceptions concept. Exception meaning, I would say graceful termination meaning a termination after the program execution. Graceful termination also we can call successful termination. Successful termination. So termination will be happen after program execution. Next one, abnormal termination. Abnormal termination means termination will happen in the middle of program only. In the middle of the program only. And then next you should know about the what is exception. Exception, it is unexpected or unwanted situation in the program execution is called exception. Basically, it is unexpected or unwanted situation in a program. In a program execution is called exception. 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 And then after that, exception will occur. Controller got when the exception will occur, then controller got terminated in the middle of program execution only. In the middle of the program execution only. After that, next you should aware of note. As a programmer, you should execute all the statements in the program as a statement. That is your responsibility. writing the code, and your responsibility is executing the all lines of the all statements in the program also your responsibility, your responsibility. And you can achieve the graceful termination with the help of handling exceptions only. So like the main developer responsibility is developer want to achieve the graceful termination, graceful termination. So these are the points should be aware. This is the exception hierarchy. uh, Types of exceptions we have: exception and error. Exception and error. Exceptions we can handle, but error we cannot handle. So throwable is the parent class for the exception class and the error class, and these two are the subclasses for the throwable. And throwable parent class is the object. Object is parent for all the classes in the Java. Object is parent class for all the Java classes. Throwable is the parent class for these two subclasses. Exception is the one subclass and error is the one subclass. So these topics we discussed in the last session. Today we'll discuss about the user defined exceptions. User defined exception meaning like whatever the concepts till now we seen in the exception handling, these are the predefined. Predefined meaning JDK people already introduced the classes like arithmetic exception and array index out of the bounds exception. These classes already JDK people has introduced to us. But sometimes what will happen, based on the project, based on the requirement, we need to create our own exception also. Such kind of exceptions we can say user defined exceptions are our own exceptions. Sometimes we need to create our own exceptions based on the requirement, based on the project. Then such kind of exceptions we can say user defined exceptions are our own exceptions. User defined exceptions are our own exceptions. Then while writing the, I would say, exceptions, we need to follow any rules? Yes, we have to follow some rules. What are the rules? First, we need to create the exception class name. Second one, we need to inherit the checked exceptions or unchecked exceptions classes. And the third one, we should create the exception object. And fourth one, you should handle with try and catch block. Should handle try and catch block. The same thing I have written the notes. You can observe this one. This is the user defined exception or custom exception. So the main purpose of the user defined exception or custom exception, this is the main thing I would say. Based on the project, it is sometimes necessary to create our own exception, and those exceptions which user or programmer creates are called custom exception or user defined exceptions. While writing the custom exceptions, we need to follow some rules. What are the rules? First rule, create the class with the custom exception. Create the class with custom exception. And the second rule, the exception class which we create should either inherit checked or unchecked class. Checked or unchecked class. And next thing, create object of exception class. Create an object of exception class created and invoke or throw the object of the exception. That is the third point. Meaning you should create the object for the exception. That object you should handle with the try and catch block. Next thing I would say, so last session we completed about the throws keyword. Now we'll have the throw keyword. Generally throw keyword is used for the custom exceptions. This keyword is used for order to invoke the object exception. So I will tell the like normal scenarios, then you'll get the clarity. I will open my notepad, MS Paint. So here I will drag this one. I will drag this one. I will drag this one. So where will you use the custom exception? Meaning, for example, I am taking some real-time scenarios like general example. I will take general example. Gmail, you can take Gmail. Everybody knows Gmail. In the Gmail, I am taking the Gmail. So how will you log in? Now you want to log in. How will you log in? So you should be able to log in with the first one. You should use the ID and then password. And then password. Right now our requirement is we should be able to log in with the Gmail. And at the time of login, like we need to give the some credentials like ID and password. ID and password. If the both credentials are okay, valid, if the both credentials are true, then you might be get the message like login successful. Login successful. You might be get the login successful. But sometimes what will happen? You might be given the wrong password. So in such case, what will happen? Login unsuccessful. You will get the login unsuccessful. But in this case, like custom exception, we will create one exception for this scenario. We will create the one exception and we will create the object for that exception. We will throw that exception and then we will display one message. We will create one exception. We will create one exception for wrong password. This is wrong password, or we can say invalid password. We can say invalid password, and we will create exception class for this one, and for this class we will create one object. This is the second case. We should create the object for this one. This is the custom class created, and we should create the object for this one, and we should throw this object. And finally we should display message. You should display some message. What message you should display? Like here, instead of invalid password, you want to display some message. That message you should write here. So I will explain one more time. Normally we'll have this Gmail. How the everybody will log in with Gmail ID and password. If the both credentials are true, then what will happen? So we will successfully log in. So that is okay, fine. But sometimes what will happen? Like you might be give the wrong ID or you might be give the wrong password. You might be give the wrong ID. You might be give the wrong password. And in that case, you should like if else statement. In the else statement, you might be write like invalid password. That is the one case. But in this case, whenever you are giving the wrong password, you might be create one custom exception, and that custom exception you should create object for that custom exception, and you should throw that custom exception, and you should display the message, whatever the message you are thinking. This is the one way. Another way is like there, whenever the condition is true, then if block gets executed. Whenever the condition is false, then else block got executed. But this scenario is we are not discussing. We are discussing about the custom exception scenario. In the custom exception scenario, like whenever like we are trying login with the wrong password, then that is the invalid password. For that invalid password, whatever the exceptions are coming, for that exception name you should create the class, and for that class you should create the object. You should that object you should throw, and throw the object, and then you should display the message, whatever the message you want to display. Like here you can say like invalid credentials. Here we will, you can say this message, this message will display on the like in the console, will be display on the console. So I will write the program, then you'll get the clarity about the Gmail login. So here in this case I am taking the class name is the invalid password. So same thing here you can observe the main purpose of the user defined exception or custom exception. The main purpose, this one, like based on the project, it is sometimes necessary to create our own exception. It is sometimes we need to create our own exception. Okay, so till now whatever like array index out of the bounds exception and arithmetic exception, these all exceptions, whatever the exceptions we discussed in the last session, those all the exceptions are predefined. So with the help of predefined, last session we handle the exceptions. Today what we are doing, this is the user defined exception. Based on the requirement, based on the project, we need to create our own exception. So today we are creating our own exception. Okay, fine. Is there any rules for creating the custom exceptions? Yes, we have the rules for creating the custom exceptions. What are the rules? These are the 4 rules. First rule, create the class with custom exception. Create the class with custom exception. Here the exception is invalid password. Invalid password is the exception. Okay, I am opening, I will open my Eclipse, and first I will create one package. I will create my package, one package. I will mention the package name custom exception. I will mention the custom exception. Okay, here I will take one class name. The class name and exception I am taking related to exception name. So here I will take the class name. Class name I will take invalid password. Invalid password. Okay, finish. So I have created the class. Class name is the invalid password. Class name is the invalid password. Okay, so rule 1 done. Rule 1 successfully done. Rule 1 is the create a class with the custom exception. Create a class with the custom exception. Okay, I have created the class. Next one, you should read this one. The exception class which created should either inherit the checked or unchecked the class. We have created the one class. The class name is invalid password. The second point here, it is saying we should, which we created should either inherit exception or unchecked exception. Now I would like to inherit the like runtime exceptions. Runtime exceptions. Runtime exception. Okay, I have created invalid password custom exception, and I am inheriting parent class. Okay, now I will take one more class. I will mention the class name as a login form. Here I will mention, so in the login form I want to log in with 2 credentials. Those 2 credentials are, first one, string ID equal to, I would like to give the admin. Okay, and second one, I would like to log in with some password. The password I would like to mention like this: int password, int pass equal to 123, 123. So whenever the both credentials are true, then I would like to get the message is login successful. For that purpose, I will take the if condition. If condition, I would like to mention one more if. I would like to mention the one more if. Here I will mention. I would say password double equals to 123. Password double equals to 123, and there here I would like to I will mention. So here I will mention some login successful. Sysout I would like to mention login successful. Login successful. Login successful. Login successful. Login successful. So basically, like in this case, what I'm saying, like the person want to log in with the Gmail. So the every person want to two credentials. One is ID and second one is the password. In this case, I am mentioning the ID is the admin and int int password is the 123. Int password is the 123. And then okay, I will take the main method here. So you can observe here, whenever the both credentials are true, then you will get the message is login successful. Login successful. Login successful. But my requirement, whenever the client like the person whoever want to log in, the person might be given the wrong password, then you might be catch that exception. You might be catch that exception. How will you catch? For example, I will take the scanner class and I would like to read the data from the input level. So for that purpose, I will take the scanner class. For that purpose, I will take the scanner class. Scanner sc equal to, I would like to take a new scanner. New scanner. Here I would like to mention system.in. System.in. System.in, and we need to import the scanner java.getting, and here we need to read the string id. Here we need to write the string id. String id sc dot next. I'm saving this one to here, and same thing I would like to read sc dot next int. I'm reading this one next integer. I'm reading the next integer. So from this one I am taking, copying this one, and I would like to mention here. I would like to mention here. I would like to mention here. Now, so instead of doing hard coding, now I am taking the values from the scanner. I am taking the value from the keyboard. I am taking the values from the keyboard. Okay. You can observe I am running the file. I am running the file. Running the file. So it is asking, it is waiting for the values. So here I would like to take the some SOP statement, sysout statement, read the so here I will mention read the ID value answer same copy and I would like to paste here. I would like to paste here and read the password. Read the password. Read the password. Okay, I am saving the file. Now I am running the file. You can observe in the console. So it is asking read the ID value. Okay, here I would like to give the admin and after that I would like to give the password. If you can observe whenever two conditions is true, then it is coming login successful. Login successful. This scenario already we knows. This scenario already we knows. Whenever the both conditions are true, then we will get the absolutely will get the login successful. But some cases what will happen whenever we are giving wrong password. For example, like Java application. Now I am giving admin. Okay, here I would like to give in the password is 123. Not 123. 123 is the correct password. Now if I give the 125, if you can observe, so nothing is coming. Nothing is coming. So here if I take the else block, now if I take the else block here, here I would like to mention sysout statement. You might be get the like invalid credentials. Invalid credentials. Okay, save the file. Now I am running the file. Running the file. You can observe it is asking for the read ID value and I am giving the ID value and here I will mention 127. You will get the invalid credentials. This is the one way, but this is the one way. But we need to display the same message with the custom exception. With the help of custom exception. How will you like display the message with the help of custom exception? Meaning we need to follow these rules. We need to follow these rules. What are the rules? First, we need to create the custom exception. Okay, yes, we have already created custom exception. And second one, the exception class which can be created should either inherit exception, checked exception or unchecked exception. So that is the second step. So second step also we completed. So third step is should create the object for the exception class. Whatever the exception class we have created here, should create the object for that class. We should create the object for that class. Okay. Now I am going to else block. I am going to else block. So instead of displaying this thing, I want to create the object for this one. How will you create the object for invalid password? How will you create normally object with the help of new keyword? So new the class name, okay, and here you should equal to the object you will store into the one reference variable and this is the class type. Now you can read this one, create object of the exception class and invoke or throw object of the exception. Throw meaning we need to throw this reference variable. How will you throw? So throw is the keyword. Throw is the keyword. Now we need to mention we need to throw the exception. We need to throw the exception. Okay. We need to throw the exception. Guys, anyone confusion here? Normally, whenever both credentials are true, then you might be get the login successful. Whenever one among those one credentials is true for invalid, then we can we want to display the invalid credentials. You can directly with the if else block also can possible. But how will you handle with the custom exception? Custom exception. Now I am writing like this. So if I write like this, Now can I able to handle the exception? Can I able to handle the exception? So I will run the file. So it is asking read the value. Now I will give the admin, and here I will give the some wrong exceptions like 128. Then you can read this line. You can read this line. So exception in main thread, invalid custom exception. So under the main method, you are getting the custom exception. So how will you handle this custom exception? How will you handle this custom exception? So we need to follow the fourth step. Handle the custom exception with the try and catch block. So the same statement, the entire statement, I am cut entire the statement. I will take the try block, and inside the try block I am paste this one, and right now I will take the catch block, and here the catch block I will take I will create one same thing IVP, and here I should pass here I should pass this class name. Guys, this internal process, what will happen, I already explained in the last session. What will happen? This is the object creation. From here to here, this is the object creation. So this object we are throwing. So the throwing object we are catching here. We are catching here. This is similar to object creation only. Normally, how will you create the object? So whenever you are whatever the code written in the unset the try block, that is the object creation. That object we are throwing in, we are pushing. Whatever the we are like object is pushing, that object we are catching with the help of this reference variable. That reference variable you can be take anything. You can be take anything. Not only same thing, you can take anything. This is the reference variable name. IVP is the object, we are throwing that object, E is the reference variable, E is catching this variable. This variable data type is the invalid password. Invalid password. In the catch block, I want to display this message. Like right now, I want to display, yeah, I am successfully handle I am successfully handle exception. Result is invalid credentials. Invalid credentials. Okay, I am saving the file. I am saving the file. I am running the file. So it is asking data from the keyboard. So I will give admin, and here I would like to give some wrong password like 129. If you can observe, I am successfully handled the exception. Result is invalid credentials. Result is invalid credentials. So this is the way we need to create the custom exceptions. We need to create the custom exceptions. I will explain one more time. Normally, like last session, we discussed about the exceptions, like null pointer exception, and we handle the exceptions also. Normally, what does it mean by exception? So before going to understand the exception, we need to understand the two words. What are the two words? One is the graceful termination, and second one is the abnormal termination. What does it mean by graceful termination? Termination after the program execution. Like you written one program, the program content is having 10 lines, 10 statements. So whenever you are running the program, whenever you are executing the program, at the time all lines should be executed. All lines got executed. If like sometimes what will happen, four lines will be executed at the fifth line due to some unexpected or unwanted situation. After the fifth line and below the fifth lines not executing. So that is the not good way. As a developer, executing of all the lines, that is your responsibility. Writing the program is your responsibility, and executing the all the statements also your responsibility, your responsibility. So graceful termination meaning the termination after program execution, meaning the like whatever the statements you have written in the program, all the lines should be executed, all the lines should be executed. If like the program the terminate, I would say termination in the middle of the program execution, then we can say that is the abnormal termination, abnormal termination. Graceful termination is our goal, our goal. The graceful termination is programmer responsibility, programmer responsibility. So after that, exception meaning and it is an unwanted or unexpected situation which occurred in the program execution, which occurred in the program execution. Why to handle exception meaning to achieve the graceful to achieve the graceful termination, we need to handle the exceptions. Then only you will get the graceful termination. Then only you can get the graceful termination. And what are the types of exceptions? Types of exceptions are two types: exception and errors. Error exceptions we can handle, errors we cannot handle. And the difference, yeah, the difference between the exception and error is the exception we can handle, error we cannot handle. And exception hierarchy, in the exception hierarchy, basically the exception hierarchy, first one is the throwable. Like in the exceptions, what are the subclasses? All the, for all the subclasses, parent class is the throwable. After the throwable have subclasses like exception and error. Under the error, we have the subclasses like null pointer exception, arithmetic array index out of the bounds exception. I would say there again categorized into checked exception and unchecked exceptions. Checked exception meaning compiler known exceptions is we can say checked exceptions. Compiler unknown exceptions we can say unchecked exceptions. And the unchecked exceptions we can say examples for the arithmetic exceptions, array index out of the bounds is index exceptions, null point exceptions, IO exceptions. These are the examples for the unchecked exceptions. Okay, what are the checked exceptions? Checked exceptions meaning compiler known exceptions we can say checked exceptions. Okay, what are the examples? Is there any examples for the checked exceptions? Yes, we
File
have the
not
examples.
found.
Yes, we have the examples for the checked exceptions like class not found exception and file data exceptions. These are the exceptions comes under the checked exceptions. After that, we are discussing about the user defined exceptions. User defined exception meaning, so like based on the project, it is sometimes necessary to create our own exceptions. So those exceptions which user or program creates are called custom exceptions. So while writing the custom exceptions, we need to follow any rules. Yes, we need to follow some rules. What are the rules? Whatever the exception we are coming, we need to create the class with that exception. We need to create the that exceptions. In this case, the exception is might coming the invalid password. So the same name we are taking and we are creating the one exception. We are creating the one exception. So after the second point, whatever the exception class we have created, which we created should be either inherit exception or unchecked exception. We should inherit the parent class. So in this scenario, I have inherit the parent class. The parent class is the runtime exception. This is the parent class invalid password, and this is the parent class. This is the actual our custom class. For this our custom class, we are inheriting the parent class. Parent class is the runtime exception. Okay. After that, next thing, third point, we should create the object for the exception class. We should create the object for the exception class. So I have taken the login form there, like I have read the values from the scan class, and I am checking when the both conditions, like when the id and password is true, then you will get the login successful. You will get the login successful. When either like password is wrong, you might be catch, and that after that we need to throw that catch. We need to throw that object and we need to display some message. So same thing I am doing here in the else block. I have successfully created one object for the custom class. This is the custom class actually. For this custom class I have created the object. Okay, this object I am throwing with the help of throws keyword, with the help of throws keyword. And in the catch block, in the catch with the in the catch block, I'm catching that object. I'm catching that object, and here I want to display some message. I want to display some messages. So when I'm trying to executing the file, now I will get the exceptions. I will get the exceptions. So custom exception based on the project, based on the situation, we will regularly will create the custom exceptions. We will regularly create the custom exceptions. We will regularly create the exceptions. So I would say, so throw keyword also, like throws is different. Throws keyword is it will do different functionality. Throw keyword it will do different functionality. Throw it is a keyword in order to invoke the object of the exception. Object of the exception. Throw is generally used for the custom exception. Throw is generally used for the custom exceptions. So these are the things I should remember in case of custom exceptions. In case of custom exceptions, like instead of I would say, we need to create the object for the custom exception, and that custom exception we need to throw whatever the throwing object. That object will be catched by the another reference variable. That reference variable is e. This reference variable data type is the invalid invalid password. Invalid password is the data type. E is the reference variable name. Reference variable name, we are catching that object with the help of reference variable name. And here we are displaying some, here we are displaying some message. Here we are displaying some message. Here we are displaying some message. That message, like I am successfully handle exception. The result is invalid credentials. Invalid credentials. This is the thing. This is all about custom exceptions. So this much, like we have completed about the exceptions. And so based on the project, and sometimes we need to create the custom exceptions also. So custom exceptions is very important. So please go through it. I will share the document and related to the today topic notes as well. Okay, please go through it and do the assignment, and you can share in the group as well. Where is my doubts? Any questions, anyone? Any questions?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay. I will share the notes and I will share the assignment. Please go through it. Okay. Thank you. We'll catch up in the next session. Okay. అన్నట్టు వాళ్ళ అటెండెన్స్ తీసుకోండి మర్చిపోయాను లైవ్లో ఏదైనా అది అయిపోయారు అటెండెన్స్ తీసుకుందాం అనుకున్నాను ఈరోజు మర్చిపోయాను అటెండెన్స్ తీసుకున్నాను మర్చిపోయాను దాన్ని లైవ్ ఆగింది